Today we have a special speaker, Ayukta, who's a passionate special educational needs and disability educator and a proud entrepreneur. Ayukta has been in the special needs field since 2012, and in 2016 she co-founded Integreat Center for young adults with special needs. And in 2017, Ayukta was selected to be a board member of the Special Olympics UAE organizing committee. Welcome, Ayukta.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for providing me this opportunity and platform to share my story. A bit of a background about myself. I grew up in Japan. I completed my education in an international school and my undergrad in Boston. And then after that, I completed my master's in mental health psychology with the University of Liverpool.
Thank you very much. You've given us a glimpse of your background and your studies. And you've traveled Dubai for a vacation in 2012 and planned to stay for only a month. And since you never left and instead you ended up building your startup Integreat Center here in Dubai, we'd like to know more about this center and what inspired you to open such a great center.
Definitely. When I first came to Dubai, during the initial few weeks, of course, it was, going to the malls, and then it was, doing the usual, going out for dinners and lunches and basically exploring Dubai. But after that, I was kind of missing a routine or some kind of structure. And that's when a friend from Boston actually recommended that I get into volunteering at a special needs center because she had previously done that. So in 2012, I started volunteering at a special needs center. I went in for an interview, and the following week, I went in and started volunteering. The first week, I went in once. The following week, I went in like 2 or 3 times. And like by the third week, I realized like I was going there every day. I was there 5 times a week. And I just thoroughly enjoyed that experience. And I was at that school for 3 years. That's when I decided to pursue my degree in special education. But during my journey over there, especially interacting with parents and even, some of my students, quite often they would ask, what's next? What are my opportunities? My students would ask that. I was 22 when I started my teaching career, and a lot of the students I initially started teaching were older than what I was. And, they were so hopeful. They really had a lot of potential and they wanted to do something, but they were just like, what opportunities are there? And that's when my partners and I came together. And starting from 2015, we started brainstorming ideas. We started conducting focus group meetings. And we're like, there's a huge gap in the market. While there are early intervention services, there are opportunities for younger individuals, but after they reach the age of 18, what's really there for them? And that's how Integreat Center came about. We're a social enterprise that really focuses on providing our students with transferable skills that can help them become independent and productive members of our society. That's our mission, and that's something we truly advocate.
That's a fascinating and interesting story that you're sharing. Can you tell us a bit more about the biggest challenges that you faced, especially when starting off the center?
Definitely. So it definitely wasn't a very easy journey. I think one of the biggest challenges was educating people and bringing awareness that people with special needs or people of determination actually have potential. Quite often a lot of people would ignore what we had to say because they didn't really believe that, they would be able to get a job or they'll be able to take the metro independently. But we really had to spread a lot of awareness. We had to share a lot of success stories that there are people of determination that are working at banks, that are working at hotels. A lot of them are able to lead an independent life, provided they're given the necessary skills to become, successful in these different fields. So that was our biggest challenge. Like I mentioned, it was just through education and awareness that we were able to overcome that kind of challenge, getting, company buy-ins, getting people to actually believe in what we wanted to offer was perhaps the biggest challenge.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And with every great story, as we know, there are, its own set of challenges. Was there anything, that you found like standing out towards a learning lesson when it comes to facing these challenges and how to overcome them that you'd like to share with us?
Definitely. I mean, nothing comes easy, and it's very important to be patient. And like I truly believe that hard work takes you places. So that kind of determination, that kind of focus, is something that you always have to stick with. If you truly believe in what you're offering, I think it will help you power through. But like, don't give up. Whatever it is, whatever the challenge is, if you truly, truly believe in it, definitely don't give up.
So moving from challenges, we'd like to speak about the greatest achievements. Any success stories, anything, when you look back at it, you're like, oh, yes, this gives me a fuel to move forward.
Definitely. I say this with a lot of pride, but there've been a whole bunch of success stories and achievements and accomplishments at Integreat Center. The fact that our students, when I see our students walking in at it, walking into the center every day, the fact that they come in with such a smile, with such courage and determination to take on the challenges that are, ready for them for that day, that itself, that attitude is absolutely amazing. Um, we've had students who, when they first came to Integrate Center, they didn't know how to say their first name, or they couldn't spell their first name. Parents spent perhaps the initial few years, 17 years, teaching them how to, zip up a sweater, these basic life skills. But over the years at Integrate Center, they've been able to gain these skills. Right before, until the lockdown, we had a few students who were taking the metro, who were taking cabs to and from Integrate Center. And these are skills that they learned at Integrate Center. So, there are so many success stories that just make me super proud of not just our students, but even our team, the parents, because in the end of the day, it's the whole community coming together and making, ensuring that they get these skills. We had one student who, on the weekends, he would sit with his backpack, and his mom would always be like, it's Friday and Saturday, you don't go to school. But he was just so enthusiastic that he really liked learning at Integrate Center. And it was just so reassuring for us, because we know we're doing something right. The fact that they were able to transfer these skills out in the community was something that was very important.
That's amazing to hear. And you mentioned, these skills that generally we do effortlessly in a way. We don't really think about these small details, like if we'd open a can, let's say, or things that we're usually, we take for granted on a daily basis. And what you mentioned is a really good reminder for us to appreciate what we have, but not only that, but also to be understanding that not everybody has that given, and in a way we can better respond to such situations when experiencing such things. And I love that you highlight some of these skills for you to empower these people. And in a previous a video that I watched with you speaking, you highlighted three fundamental skills that I really found like inspiring, honestly, which is productivity, independence, and happiness. So can you tell us, the secrets of these three, and how do you implement them on a daily basis?
Definitely. So these themes were actually something we got out of our focus group meeting when we before Integrate Center was actually put together. We had a meeting with parents, siblings, and key influential people in the special needs field, community members, and we're like, what do you want for your child or for your siblings? And these were the common themes that came out. They're like, we want our child to be productive because they have potential. So we want to ensure there are opportunities for them. We want to ensure that they're happy. In the end of the day, we all deserve happiness, but given the opportunity, quite often they weren't allowed to, they didn't have access to certain places, for example. But as soon as ramps were made or different platforms were made, like for bowling or anything of that sort, that was a form of happiness. So, these things, we target this at Integrate Center on a daily basis. So once they come in, we ensure they're productive. We ensure that whatever learning objective is outlined for that day, that they're taking the necessary steps to reach that. We ensure that when they come in, it's not like they're in a stressful environment. We ensure like put in a lot of creative learning. We ensure that, they are challenged, but at the same time, they're also very satisfied with their results. So that, that happiness and, just creating a very safe and vibrant community at Integreat Center. As soon as you walk in, that's basically what you feel. And that's something we're very, very proud of.
That's beautiful to highlight when you say creating a safe environment. And that leads me to another question, like what advice would you give, in terms of attitudes for people dealing with people with determination? Sometimes, we've witnessed these enormous situations where in the middle of the mall we'd see a child screaming or, some actions, and sometimes our reaction is what makes the whole situation worse.
Definitely.
So, what best responses would you advise and attitudes do you think that people should embrace?
So it depends, like, scenario, depends on each scenario. If you do see a meltdown, if you do see a behavior by a person of, determination, quite often they are with their families or their caretaker or someone. So in the end of the day, like we've been taught as kids, like mind your own business, If no one's seeking your help, just walk past it. Everyone has their good days, everyone has their bad days. But looking and staring at someone, it's the last thing, the families want. It's the last thing that individual wants. They're they're dealing with their own behaviors, with their own coping mechanism, and sometimes you just have to give them that space. Um, but then in different scenarios, like for example, if you're at a park or sometimes people of determination are very, very friendly, and they want to meet new people, so they go up to strangers and they'll greet you and everything. And there's so many times where I've seen people like take a step back because they're like, why are they talking to me, or like, how do I greet them, or do I have to do something special? But it's like, no, just have an attitude how you would have with anyone else. In the end of the day, greet them, talk to them, you'll have an amazing conversation. Like, they don't need to be treated differently. The only one thing I always say, when there is a meltdown, when there is behavior, walk past it. Unless help is not required, don't stare. That's, for family members, even like, as an educator, I mean, we've had incidents, in the malls or at restaurants and everything. And when people are constantly staring, it adds frustration to that current moment. So just walk past it, mind your own business. But other than that, when you are interacting with them, be yourself. They're going to be themselves, and you just going to form a new relationship, which is absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great to hear. And I mean, the main point you're highlighting here is inclusivity. At the end of the day, I mean, they're members of our community, and we're all collectively, responsible for each other. And it's just like, any one of us would go, like in a mall, for example, accidentally drop something. It would be embarrassing to have people stare at you. So yeah, just mainly empathy and put yourself in their shoes. Great advice, thank you, Ayukta. So moving towards your other role in the Special Olympics, in 2017 you were selected to be a board member of the Special Olympics UAE organizing committee. So can you tell us a bit more about that experience?
Definitely. It was probably one of the most exciting years for me, not just being a board member, but hosting the World Games in 2019. I always tell people, that series of events completely changed my life. While centers and different institutions are doing their part on, focusing on, inclusive education, providing therapy and advocacy and everything, this was such a different platform. Through the means of sports and leadership, we were able to spread a lot of awareness. There were so many different inclusive, things that were implemented. We had athletes and people of determination interning at different companies. For example, Lush. We had them training as coaches. Now a lot of mainstream schools are trying to be inclusive with their sports as well. So it was a very exciting time. This through the means of sports, we were really able to advocate about inclusion, and it was just such a powerful and empowering event. Um, I'm still in touch with some of the youth leaders and athletes I met during the event. It was super emotional because it's not, during the games, you see everyone wearing their medals and everyone sharing their success stories. But I had a lot of like one-on-one conversations with them, and they'll all be like, yeah, it wasn't easy for me to reach here. Initially, a lot of trainers or coaches wouldn't want to train them, or they didn't have the skills. And you could just see they've all had their own share of challenges, and sharing about how they've overcome those challenges to where they are today. It was just really, really like heartwarming.
It's beautiful to hear. There's a lot. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of memories and many great experiences. But if I would like to pinpoint one that you found mostly significant as as a significant memory, is there one particularly you'd like to share?
Um, that's a hard question. I would say perhaps it was the opening ceremony. Um, I remember I was like tearing up. I got super emotional, but when you saw all the athletes walking in, holding their flags and like, with their sports equipment and everything, the pride, everyone walked in with so much confidence and like, so much courage and faith and love and excitement. And this was just the start of the games, and that was an amazing feeling. Like I was screaming on top of my lungs, and I was like, yeah, go you. It was really, really exciting. I think the opening ceremony, just seeing everyone with their smiles, it was just amazing. Difficult to kind of put it into words, to be honest with you. But when you just see their faces, their smile, and then later you hear their stories, you just feel
Mm.
extremely proud of them.
And I feel, I mean, sometimes you can't put these emotions into words, but the passion that you speak with says it for itself. And this is, the segment that we'd like to focus on for now is, mashallah, through your passionate work, you've been able to raise awareness, to different members of the community about the importance of such a role, integrating, and literally the words Integrate Center does that. So considering the current situation where schools have shifted virtually, it's been a very challenging period for many of us to adapt to the current situation. So we've been having a number like this question from a number of people who've shared their questions previously, including Daniela Rossi from the US, and they're asking, how do you approach distance learning, for, in particular in Integrate Center, and what were adaptive, mechanisms in dealing with the situation?
Definitely. So something that had to be, training or advice or strategies had to be shared from both sides. It wasn't just teachers being trained on how to teach online effectively. While that part was done, there were a lot of parts in terms of what was required or strategies that had to be implemented from the parent side. And I think that's something I'll touch upon. But one of the important things was we constantly, we always help parents, like, don't get too stressed out about this. Don't be too hard on yourself. These are trying times. These are times of uncertainty. So every day is not going to be good. And as long as you emotionally and mentally prepare yourself, then, that's the first step towards it. And other strategies that we've shared with parents was the importance of setting boundaries, the importance of physical boundaries. So, for example, you shouldn't be eating, studying, sleeping, and doing every other kind of activity in the same place. For example, your bed. That movement or having different places for different activities is very important. So having a desk where you study is important. And having another place where you eat is equally important. Where you go to sleep should only be for sleeping. When you set these physical boundaries, mentally, you've got a routine. You have a structure, which plays a very important role in kind of calming any kind of anxiety. Another important thing is communication. for some parents and for educators and students, online learning can be very difficult. The constant promptings that are required, sometimes, ensuring, sometimes it can even be a technical issue, or sometimes it can be like subject matter is very difficult. So to be able to communicate that with the relevant party or individual is something that's very, very important. We always emphasize, the importance of communication. Whenever we see parents struggling, we immediately follow up with a phone call or a Zoom call, and we'll be like, we've seen that, you've been a bit frustrated or you're experiencing this. How can we help you? That's also very, very important. Another really funny thing that parents thought were, it was a funny kind of advice, but we were like, the importance of dressing up for school. Yes, we all are at home, we're studying from home, but the importance of waking up in the morning, going through your morning routine and actually getting dressed for school. Where like students cannot be attending the sessions in their pajamas. And they're like,
Mm.
"Oh, shower later." They're like, they can take a shower later, take it again. But the importance of actually feeling dressed and educating yourself during that process is very important, because it affects your mindset as well. If I sat in this conference in my pajamas, my
Mm.
entire body language, my attitude, everything would have been completely different. But now that I'm dressed up for this, my whole body language, everything, my attitude is completely changed. So a lot of people take this for granted, but the way you dress is equally
Mm.
important during this quarantine time. It really helps with your self confidence, and it also helps with your overall, mental and emotional well being.
It's great advice you're giving for, I think, all of us who are now working from home or studying from home. I think the response for some of us was like, "Oh, I work from home. I'll spend the whole day in PJs." But as you mentioned, and it's beautiful to see how you're applying, your master's in psychology in the day-to-day practices, because it does make a difference. And we've seen a lot of scientific research that proves the effectiveness of that in boosting the energy levels and boosting the mood. So moving next, like the importance that you mentioned on the emotional, physical, and the mental well-being is very essential. And you mentioned a bit about, let's say the students or maybe even the parents. What other advice would you give that could really help people in their daily lives for better moods, better productivity, and efficiency?
I think there are two advice that I would like, which I think is very important and really, really helps me. The first thing is labeling your emotions. We all are gonna have periods where we're gonna feel anxious. There are gonna be times where we're super frustrated, and there's just so much uncertainty, so we don't have a lot of answers with us. So it's only very natural to go through these emotions right now. But what has proven to be very effective for me is actually labeling my emotions. So whenever I'm feeling anxious, or if I'm feeling something which is usually not normal to my belief or my, you know, well-being, I, take a deep breath and I'm like, okay, you're feeling anxious now, or you're feeling nervous, or you're feeling, jealous, you're feeling these things. When I tend to label these emotions, it brings a lot of clarity to me. And then after that, I'm like, okay, so how do I tackle this? Quite often we're like, these are mental issues, but this is actually just your mental health. It's completely normal to experience this. So once you label it, denial is always the first step. But the second step, once you label it, then you're actually able to go through a stage of actually, self-curing, or, through the process of like talk therapy. Like, for example, I've got a great support system, whether that includes, my family or friends and everything. I'm able to talk about that. But if not, seeking professional help to deal with that emotion is completely acceptable and should be encouraged. So labeling, your emotions is usually the first thing I always encourage people to do. And the second thing, like, a lot of people underestimate the power of breathing. Sometimes if you're feeling anxious, if you just close your eyes and take a deep breath in and out, I know a lot of, health practitioners even encourage, placing your hands on your belly or even on your heart and, your chest, and, just feeling your breath go in and out. And when you feel that inhale and exhalation, that tends to calm the mind. And these two things are something I use, and I've found it to be, very effective. And that's something I would like to share with a lot of people.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is treasure advice, because sometimes we fall into the day-to-day, busy work, and we're in action mode, almost 24/7, and we tend to forget the smallest things we have freely, readily available, just like breathing properly. And I have to admit, like, I'm one of the first people who who falls, guilty in that, where we forget it, and also see the difference when you actually put it in practice, how it affects the mental and emotional state of yours. As you said, at the end of the day, we're humans. We're facing these challenges, and especially at these times, with COVID-19, it's unexpected, and we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty, as you mentioned. So there's a lot for us to deal with, and it's not the situation that's uncertain. Even our behavior, our
Behavior.
reactions, our responses are uncertain. And sometimes, I mean, especially in this situation, we find ourselves dealing with a lot of disappointment. Like, I didn't expect myself to react in such a way. So how would you, I mean, what kind of advice would you give, especially when it comes to disappointment in such situations?
Especially in such times, I think it's very important for people to realize, like, it's important not to be so hard on yourself. A lot of things, especially now, is out of your control. What's happening in the economy, what's happening with
Mm.
health and everything, that's out of your control. So it's natural to face that kind of disappointment, but it's also equally important not to be so hard on yourself. What I always encourage people is to do whatever is within your means to better manage those that kind of disappointment. So if it was something you were able to control, whether it was your anger, your reaction, or if it was something work like sending an email out at the right time or something, these are things you can control, and that's up to you to make necessary lifestyle changes or make changes with your attitude and everything. That's all within your means, and you can make those changes. But when it comes to things that are out of your control, don't be so hard on yourself. But like they say, everyone always has the ability to improve themselves, and perhaps this is the best time to work on these things. Whether it's about self-care, self-love, about working on anger management, or things that have always disappointed you. How to work on modifying that and everything. These are the best times to actually tackle such concerns. If you're happy with everything, then great, amazing. But then there's always space for improvement, and it's the best time to take advantage of
Mm.
this and improve yourself.
Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful. And I think I'd like to tie it to the mindset that you mentioned. Having such a mindset where you're open for change, it's this journey is a lifelong journey that you keep on learning day by day. And you shared beautiful, I mean, amazing practical advice that we can start implementing right now. So, as a community, overall, how can we now, individuals, in the session who benefited, how can we help create awareness and show support to the wider community?
First of all, just being very open and kind on to different platforms, whether it's people you meet out in public, in places where the lockdown has gotten, less strict, or, showing kindness, following rules and regulations, providing support to people who may need it. During such times, people are not hearing a lot of positive words or like good news. So sometimes, just telling a friend, I'm there for you, or do you want to talk about anything, or be like, let's virtually watch a movie together. Providing that kind of support during such times is very important. There are a lot of things the community can actually do for free for each other, and, just while you can't really be there for people physically, but virtually through other means, you can really show support to a greater community by just sharing more positivity, sharing more kindness, supporting small businesses for people who are, ordering food from outside. That's also a big step. I'd like to say the world and businesses need us more than ever right now. So if everyone can do their part to show that kind of support, it's amazing.
Every little step, makes a difference, and definitely, as you said, awareness is like the first step to change. So now we're aware. What's next is up to us to actually do. I'd just like to pause here for a second and remind our participants that they can share their questions in the Q&A button at the bottom control panel, and we'll be addressing your questions towards the end of the session, inshallah. So now a little bit more about Ayukta. Can you tell us about your role model?
Yeah. You know, 3 years ago, I remember when I was doing an interview, someone asked me the same question, and they thought my answer was rather cheesy. But I was like, no, I'm, you know, very honest with my answer. But in all honesty, my role model, I mean, growing up, I had different role models, you know, celebrities, you know, family, all that. But, you know, once I started getting into teaching, my role models actually became my students. Um, you know, their courage, their determination, their, you know, their how genuine they were, their hard work, everything was just so inspiring. Quite often, you know, as individuals, we tend to look up to people we don't know. So we actually don't know their stories. We don't know how they've climbed the success, you know, ladder. So with my students, I've seen them accomplish their different goals. You know, they've had the right attitude, you know, their wittiness. I remember I was about to give out a spelling test, and one of my students was like, you know, Miss Ayu, if you give me 100, I'll let you come over to my house and we can watch Justin Bieber together. And I was just like, you know, like their humor, their personality, everything, it was just so inspiring. And I just genuinely loved being around my students. And I was like, my students are my role models. Like, I really look up to each and every one of them. They've done really well for themselves, and they continue to do really well for themselves. And um, they're just super passionate about the different things they really like and care about. And they're just really driven in their own ways, which I really admire.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful, and especially that you mentioned the point that sometimes we tend to overlook, you know, inspiration that's right in front of us and look for something that's a bit further. So it's a really great point, because there's a lot that's just right in front of our eyes. There's a lot that's around us. So if we only put that lens where we can actually see that and start to appreciate that. So thank you for raising this beautiful reminder, and especially at such times, I think it would definitely be very handy and useful. Um, so moving towards your personal principles, is there any success mantra that you use at work, or advice, especially for working entrepreneurs? I mean, mothers or anyone at this time, you know, who's pursuing a certain career or passion. What would your advice be to them or for them?
An advice I tend to give a lot of people, you know, there's a quote by Walt Disney that says, if you dream it, you can do it. You know, it's really important to have courage. It's really important to have that attitude to be able to put in that hard work. Nothing comes easy. If people say, like, you know, I reached this, you know, easy, everyone has a story, everyone has their struggles. There are, you know, you're going to encounter different obstacles, but it's your attitude, it's your courage, it's your mindset that will, you know, help you power through. So don't give up. If you really, really believe in what you want to offer or what you want to provide, go with it with your whole heart, soul, and mind, and you will achieve it. But like, just don't give up. Don't think things will come easy. It's important to put in that hard work. So that's something I always tell people, like, if you really, really believe it and if you really want it, like, go for it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I would definitely, you know, share with, you know, different entrepreneurs and people who are, you know, trying to do something um, of their own. Don't give up. But my favorite quote or mantra that I go by is I even have a board at Integreat Center because I truly, truly believe in this. But it's basically, in a world where you could be anything, be kind. I can't emphasize the importance of kindness, and especially in our age right now, we need kindness more than anything. There's so many benefits, you know, of being kind, not just for your own emotional and mental well-being, but they say it's equally contagious. So once you start spreading kindness, it has a ripple effect, and other people start to show that as well. And it's not only for integration, but I believe it's an important human characteristic that a lot of people have forgotten. And spreading kindness and being kind as an individual is something that's very important.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I mean, it's something so simple. Sometimes it takes you a pause to do that. It takes you very little, but the impact that it creates is very huge. I mean, just to share a simple personal experience, we've seen that, alhamdulillah, blissfully, the DFF whole team, simple acts of kindness, the willingness to support, and the contagious energy that it
Yeah.
creates. When you receive that, you want to give it to everyone, so it creates that ripple effect, which is beautiful and very powerful. And as you mentioned previously, it's very rewarding. It makes you want to give more, it makes you want to do more, and offer more, and definitely that has its own impact on the community as a whole, which is great. So mashallah, I mean, we're almost 15 minutes towards the end of the session, and before we move towards Q&A, is there anything you'd like to share with the audience in terms of upcoming projects that you're working on, and how can the wider audience and participants be part of that?
So at the moment, Integrate Center, we're busy with our online platform. But like our name stands, Integrate Dubai. Everyone can do their part. So at the end of the session, our contact details will be shared. So if you've got any creative ideas of any means that through any means how you can support Integrate Center, whether it's through online, workout videos or anything of that sort, building the community and supporting each other, that would be great. But yeah, we're always open to different ideas in terms of how people can support, the larger community. But just as long as dialogue's initiated, then we can take it from there.
That's great. We have a question from Mukta Verma, who's joining us from KHDA, and the question is, how do you currently, support your students when it comes to employment? Is there any certification that you provide them?
Definitely. So we have a 2-year vocational program, and in the vocational program, our students participate in various internships. So for example, our students have interned with DHL, Kempinski Hotel, Choitram, so different industries, and they learn different key skills and different tasks in these different industries, so they're able to equip themselves with the knowledge. And we've also partnered up with the UK accrediting program called ASDAN, and so our students get a certification that's recognized worldwide once they graduate from Integrate Center.
Mm-hmm. That's great. We have a question from Harsh, and they're asking if you were able to receive or open for a corporate sponsorship or funding at these times to run with the activities.
Yeah, we are open to that. Integrate Center operates as a social enterprise, and just like other small businesses, we have been affected with COVID-19, and any kind of corporate sponsorship, support of any means is more than welcome during this time.
Thank you. We have another question from Bhakti. I hope I'm pronouncing their name right. So they're asking, do you think there's a need for policy change, especially when it comes to special needs education?
The great thing with the UAE is they tend to implement policies very quickly based on practices that are happening around the world. So in 2016, an inclusion policy was implemented where all schools had to revise their inclusion departments, and since 2017, you'll see the amount of students with special needs that have been integrated in mainstream schools have increased, which is absolutely very few special needs individuals were in mainstream schools. Now the numbers are way higher. So yes, they need, policies need to be changed. A lot of things have to be modified. But the good thing is Dubai is in a very adaptive place, that they're making the necessary modifications and they are following, trends that are happening in other parts of the world when it comes to special needs. And, through the means of the World Games in 2019, that opened new doors as well. A lot of big companies have actually started approaching athletes and other people of determination for full-time employment. So yes, policies need to be put into place, but with time, I think through trial and error, a lot of these things will be formalized.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We have another question from Fathiya Al Khaja, who's joining us from Dubai Health Authority, and she's asking, would you consider stuttering a special need?
So that's a complicated answer. So from a medical perspective, stuttering is known to be a communication disorder, but the reason why it is based on the diagnosis. So if it's because of trauma, then you can overcome stuttering. If you're born with it because of a brain disorder, then it is something that affects cognitive ability, and it can be seen as as an additional need. Personally speaking, for myself, I don't see it as an additional need. Um, I think it's something that people's attitudes and all need to change. They just need to be more patient when talking to someone who stutters. But I don't think it's an additional need. Like there's no need, there's no reason in my belief that they shouldn't have access to a mainstream school, or they shouldn't be employed, for example, because it's for most part, it's not an obstacle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. You've answered your second question about their rights, and as you mentioned, it's mainly about people's attitudes, and I think that reflects on almost everything we do in our lives. Even when somebody, for example, reacts to something we've done with good intentions in not the most favorable manner, we wouldn't feel good. Our emotional state might go down, and the whole outcome would completely shift. So I think attitudes, responses are key to whether decide we want a positive outcome or something that we don't hope for. Yeah, and that's great key advice, and it's a really good reminder. Sometimes we tend to forget, in our daily lives about the importance of such things, and I link it back to the breathing exercise, having these pauses and reflections and good reminders for us to integrate that as part of our lifestyles. So that's definitely treasure. Moving towards the last question that we have, you mentioned about the Special Olympics and how that has created some awareness. In your opinion, particularly in the UAE, do you think what better, let's say, steps do you advise us to do to raise more awareness about people with determination? And do you think that there is enough social awareness in our community?
Um, there's no such thing as enough awareness for any subject. I think people can always learn about different things, whether it's health related, whether it's new knowledge or a new skill, anything, you can always learn. So any kind of awareness is always great awareness. um, a lot of platforms have been opened, and a lot of positive trends, whether it's about restaurants being inclusive by, creating ramps, for people with any physical, concerns, or, mainstream schools being more inclusive, or, even, for example, Integreat Center being put together where we're filling in a gap. While these positive trends are there, I have to say a lot more still has to be done. The number of people of determination that are there, we need to match up jobs for each and every one of them. Yes, the ages vary and everything, but, a lot more can still be done. But having said that, Dubai has, you know, they are progressing in a very positive way. Unfortunately, with the current times, a lot of things have been put on hold or delayed. But hopefully, once things get better, hopefully people still have the right mindset and believe in inclusion and integration, that they immediately follow through with the actions they had promised right before this. We had students who were being offered jobs from our internships. We had students going on various excursions and all. So, people do have the right mindset. A lot of it also has to do with us providing trainings and awareness. But, things still need to be done, but it's heading in the right direction.
Alhamdulillah, that's good to hear. And I think for now, at least, it's our part as individuals to make these changes happen, especially in such situations. We have a few more questions. So what's the scope, Freddie's asking, what's the scope of inclusiveness or inclusive playgrounds in Dubai in particular or generally?
So what's the scope? So there are different parks and different recreational venues that are available for people of determination. A lot of them tend to get discounts, or they're able to go for free, which is great. In terms of physical limitations, I know a lot of places in the US and the UK, they've got those specialized swings and everything. Those are something that are not really made in public parks and all, but I know there are plans to implement them. So again, these in the US, which hopefully will, follow through in the UK. But currently, with the current parks and recreational, sites and everything that exists right now, there are a lot of benefits. And, our students attend, and even younger individuals of, people of determination tend to go to these different parks, and they thoroughly enjoy it. The people managing them, they're actually really well trained to welcome people of determination. So it's the scope is pretty great, I would say.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much, Ayukta. Before handing back to Cherry, is there any final advice that you would like to share with our participants?
First of all, thank you so much for listening to my story. It's very, very flattering. Additionally, during these uncertain and, trying times, I think it's just really important that we always remember what we're grateful for, and also, in the constant importance of, spreading kindness. I think that's something that's much needed for each and every community. Especially for people of determination. They're a rather vulnerable community and have been deeply affected, with COVID-19. And if we can show any kind of support for people, institutions, or anything trying to support them, I think that's important. And hopefully we can all come together as a community to support each other.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Ayukta. It's been a great session. If it was up to me, we'd continue for hours. Great advice, a great personality, very passionate, and it's beautiful how you see the opportunities in such situations, the willingness to spread awareness, to contribute to the community, and to the sense of inclusivity that we should all embrace. Is something that we highly, take away from this session. So thank you so much for being with us, Ayukta. And Cherry, I hand over back to you.
Thank you so much, Asma and Ayukta, for that amazing session. It's really inspirational, and I've learned so much from the session. Also, I've got like a couple of advices, especially with the breathing exercise. So that's one thing that I lack of. And thank you so much. And I hope the attendees enjoyed the session. And for the upcoming sessions, we'll post the link in the chat box. So follow us in our social media accounts. We're quite active on that, and we post our updated sessions on that. And before I end this this webinar or this session, I'd like to ask Asma as well to give us details more about the Dubai Future Academy sessions and the upcoming ones.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Cherry. So we, under the Dubai Future Academy, which is the capacity arm of the Dubai Future Foundation, have community events as part of our offerings, where we aim to raise awareness to the wider community by having sessions similar to Women's Majlis and other sessions. So we're currently running the Ramadan Pioneer Series, which is a virtual sessions where we invite breakthrough global and regional and local speakers who share breakthrough ideas about the future of Dubai from different backgrounds, different fields of expertise. And today's session, which is before the last, starting at 4:30, we're going to have representatives from Dubai government highlighting the actual implementation of technology in Dubai and how it's helping tackle the current situation. So they will be sharing some glimpses that haven't been shared, that we don't usually hear about. So we'd like to invite you to join us. You can check out the Dubai Future Academy website to register for the sessions, and you can also visit our social media at Dubai Future Academy on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Dubai Future AC on Twitter to get the final updates. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you, Ayukta and Cherry, for a lovely, lovely session.
Thank you.
And
Thank
wish
you
you
so
all
much.
the best.
Take
Thank you so
care.
much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thanks.
Thank you.